what I want to make is here. Oh, sorry. Let me try that again. Braid is an interesting game in a lot of ways. It's challenging, well thought out, beautiful, and has a lot of creative mechanics. It's no wonder that this game was one of the catalysts for the modern indie scene. Braid was released by Number None Inc. on August 6th, 2008 for the Xbox 360. Some subsequent releases were ported by Hothead Games, but all versions were presumably overseen by the lead designer, Jonathan Blow. I'll be completely upfront here. I don't really care much for puzzle games most of the time. If you can sort of cheat the system and solve puzzles your own way, then I can really enjoy them. I like when they feel free and open. But puzzle games with singular solutions to the puzzles are something that I just don't really enjoy much. Especially when they're bad, they begin to feel more like a psychological evaluation where your goal is to get inside the head of the developer, rather than to logically solve a problem. I explain that because Braid is the type of puzzle game that realistically only has one solution for most of the puzzles. It's a game that I probably shouldn't have enjoyed that much, but in the end, I did like playing it. I had a decent amount of fun with this game, so let's check it out and try to figure out why. Keep in mind that there will probably be spoilers for both the puzzles and the story aspects here. Braid breaks itself down into 6 chapters that each ask the player to solve puzzles using a variety of different time-based mechanics. Each world has its own isolated mechanic at play. The mechanic from World 4 doesn't carry over to World 5 or anything, which helps to keep goals clear and presentation simple. Every world plays with its own mechanics separately, and in as many ways as possible. Universal interactions with the world are really limited, and harken back to older Mario games. You jump on enemies, you jump across platforms, and you can climb some walls. You can pick up keys to unlock areas, and you can rewind time near indefinitely. There are also some objects with a green aura that aren't affected by the rewind mechanic. Each world-specific mechanic focuses on time manipulation, like levels that rewind when you walk left and play normally when you walk right. Your goal is fairly simple. Find a way to get each puzzle piece in each stage, and build the painting for that world from them. There are also several super secret hidden stars throughout the game, but we'll get into that later. The story is presented to you using small blocks of text hidden inside books within the entrance to the various worlds. Speaking of the worlds, they're accessed using a small hub world, and any world or stage can be revisited at any time once it's unlocked. This really is a game you're meant to take your time in, though it likely won't take you any more than 4 to 6 hours to complete your first time. Beyond the basic game, you can also do speedruns of specific stages, as well as a speedrun of the entire game. There's a trophy for beating it in under 42 minutes, which would require mastery of all the game's stages, but the game is short enough that you might want to do that just because it's so fun. And when a game can get you to do its tedious side objectives just for the fun of it, you know it's doing something right. Braid's strongest aspect, gameplay-wise, is how simple and focused it is. It would have been extremely easy with time-based mechanics like these for the game to get overcomplicated and end up a confusing mess. And it would have been just as easy for the puzzle to be broken through exploits. I'm sure over the years there have been a few glitches and exploits found. I know one for sure that allows you to get the secret ending without doing any of the work it requires. But overall, the game is extremely solidly built, and the consistency it has makes it easy to tell when you're not doing things the way they're intended to be done. The tutorial sections for each mechanic are almost all really well implemented. They tell you the very basics of how the mechanics work without a single word, and then the game throws puzzles at you that require using said mechanic in out-of-the-box ways that really keep you interested and on your toes. Honestly, there's only one mechanic that I think was poorly explained, and that's the fact that jumping on 2 enemies in a row, or 1 enemy twice, makes you bounce off of them even higher the second time. There's a single place where the game teaches you this, and then there are really only 2 puzzles where it's required, both of them way down the line. It's kind of a shame because neither of the 2 puzzles is about that mechanic. The initial puzzle I got stuck on because of this mechanic is in the world where time rewinds by going backwards. Your goal is to kill each enemy to reveal the puzzle piece, but reaching the enemies requires going left at points, so you have to find the right order to defeat them in, or you'll end up respawning enemies you've already defeated, while trying to reach ones you haven't. The puzzle would have worked exactly the same way if the platforms had simply been a little lower, so that you didn't have to jump on the enemy twice to access it. so all that mechanic really does is gets in the way. It made it feel like I was doing it wrong when I in fact wasn't. Regardless, I still actually enjoyed that puzzle. There was truthfully only one puzzle that I didn't like in the entire game, and funnily enough, it was the other one where this mechanic was required. Luckily, that mechanic had nothing to do with my problems with it. There's a point near the end where you have to get 2 enemies unaffected by time past a bunch of carnivorous plants by slowing the plants down, so that you can jump on both enemies and grab the puzzle piece. To do this, you use a ring that slows things down within its vicinity. In this case, you want to slow down the plants to get them timed perfectly. The problem is that it's really easy to get the timing of some of the plants completely off while trying to fix other plants. I think I understand it now, but that's only after tons of time running around like a chicken without its head, frantically trying to get the plants timed perfectly. It wasn't fun, because it was too easy for the ring to accidentally slow down adjacent plants when you didn't want it to, screwing the whole thing up. Other than that though, the puzzles are really well made and really enjoyable, and they make you feel good when you complete them. The secret stars, meanwhile, I don't even know how you get any of those. Getting all of the secret stars changes some parts of the ending sequence, allowing you to change the ending of the game entirely, but I never even found a single one across 2 playthroughs. I know where one of them is, but only because it's the most infamous part of the game. There's a cloud in one of the early levels that you can see floating near the end of the stage. If you look closely, you notice that it's actually moving, slowly inching toward the beginning of the stage. The game asks that you wait 2 full hours while this cloud makes its way all the way to the star, where there's a hidden star waiting. All I can say is, boy am I glad there's an exploit that allows you to get the alternate ending without the stars. As far as the presentation goes, there isn't really a single thing wrong with this game. The visuals are gorgeous, the music is great, and the story, while intentionally vague, feels deep and can be interpreted in a multitude of ways. The generally accepted interpretation is that Tim, who's in search of the princess, is actually a scientist working on creating the first atomic bomb. The princess is the bomb. He is eventually consumed by his mission, due to his obsessive personality. Everything in the game is supposed to be a representation of that, and there are a lot of things that do a good job of confirming this as the canon story explanation. As I recall though, Jonathan Blow has never outright explained what the story is supposed to actually mean, saying that it's meant to be interpreted how you want it to be. But he has stated that absolutely everything is in the game intentionally. There isn't a single word, piece of art, or anything else that doesn't have its reason for being there. I originally thought that the story was a representation of a man who had begun losing his mind, and abandoning everything he loved in his life for his imaginary princess that embodied perfection to him. I thought it was about how Tim's hallucinations were maybe due to a lie that he'd slowly gotten so used to telling that it had become real to him, even when nobody else believed it to be the truth. I thought it was a sad story of a man who'd lost himself in his own imagination, wanting so much to have a dramatic storybook life, and slowly descended into madness never to return. That is, until the game started talking about monkeys with tungsten rods put into the brains. Regardless, the story is one that's fully interwoven with the gameplay, and is incredibly interesting to digest. It's well written, well implemented, and just vague enough that there isn't an interpretation that's completely invalid. Mr. Blow has stated that the game is intended to be a deconstruction of typical game design, and that's definitely noticeable. Artistically, the game is beautiful, with a consistent color palette, great animations, and a cohesive feeling that makes it seem as if you're playing a painting. While it's not really my style, damn if it isn't stunning to look at. Some of the art was obviously made to resemble the Mario games, with things like piranha plants that come out of pipes, little hairy Goombas, and a flag you raise at the end of the levels, but it works well as an homage rather than feeling like it's pandering. The music, meanwhile, is just as good. A lot of it is classic pieces, but there are a fair amount of original pieces in there as well. I myself prefer the original stuff just because it's new to me, but it's all really well done. What's most interesting about the music here is that it isn't immune to the effects of the time manipulation mechanics. Music reverses when you rewind, slows down when you slow down time, and will even stop altogether until you move Tim around the stage, depending on the world you're in. It still sounds good the whole time, and really goes to show how well written each piece is. I can see how it could get annoying to some people, having some pieces of music repeat over and over as you try to figure out a puzzle. But to me it felt so in tune with the rest of the game that it never really got annoying. Funny that the very second time I used the segment, there isn't really much to improve upon here. It'd be nice if the game had visuals that were a little less murky. It's clear that this was a game limited by the early Xbox Live Arcade game size restrictions. Again, the visuals are still beautiful, but they could be a bit more crisp. That's definitely a minor thing though. The only other thing I would change are the two puzzles I talked about earlier. I won't even pretend I understand how to fix them properly, but I think they were the only 2 points where you end up getting caught up in issues that aren't intentional. That, and I suppose there could be a fast forward option after you beat the game or something. That way you didn't actually have to wait 2 hours for that darn cloud. Braid is a great game. It's well made, interesting, beautiful, and fun. I can't really sing its praises enough. I'd say it's short and simple enough that it's arguably a must-play for anyone. It makes me somewhat excited for Jonathan Blow's next game, The Witness, which I had absolutely no interest in before. Hopefully it lives up to the expectations everyone has, because the longer they wait, the more unrealistically high they're becoming. It's almost guaranteed to be a great game, and it'd be a shame if it ends up being overshadowed by the hype.